Hello, welcome to this episode of the Martial Truth, Training versus Fighting. All right, before we get into that, as usual, picking up subscribers, the shorts situation seems to be working. Okay, so the channel's growing faster. Right? I think it's a good thing. We'll see. As always, if you like the video, please click that like, share, subscribe button. Consider becoming a monthly member. Maybe you want to buy some merch. You see it scrolls down below the video. People seem to like some of the shirts that they have purchased. So if you like stuff, for those of you in Ishinru, if you need Ishinru Megami patches, you can reach out to me privately. I have plenty of them to sell, plenty of them available for purchase. Okay. So just thought I'd mention that. I'll be interviewing Walt Young Sensei tomorrow afternoon, which will be good. We're going to talk about the recent upload of the video. Choshin Jibana Sensei, my mistake. Choshin Jibana Sensei. So we'll talk about that, how that all came about. I think people will find that fascinating. So let's move on and let's talk about training versus fighting. So I do a lot of different martial arts and I teach a whole bunch of them. So, some places I'm thought of as a Kobudo guy, other places a karate guy, Taiji guy, jiu-jitsu guy. So it's just funny, right? Different groups think of me as that guy, all right? So what I wanted to talk about was I think sometimes we make the mistake of thinking we only train in a way that looks like a fight. So, karate guys will say, well, we do a lot of sparring. Okay, well, what kind of sparring do you do? Well, we put on the foam rubber stuff and the referee and he calls points. Yeah, that's not training for a fight. Okay. There's nothing wrong with that training. That training can accomplish other things. Can build up your fighting spirit, can show you if you get hit, what it feels like, all right? Because you do that kind of sparring, you're going to get hit on occasion. But even the training we do here, on occasion, people get hit, okay? It's just the way it goes. You're doing martial arts. You're not doing tiddlywinks, all right? So for instance, this past week, I put up a video of Tako Kumite. And some people would look at that and say, come on, man, what are we doing here? Well, what we're doing here is we're trying to train an ability in the body. And if the body gets that ability, then bring that ability into the actual fight. So even though it doesn't look anything like a real fight, and some people might say, it's kind of silly. I don't like the way you do that. Okay. Same thing with some of the other two-person drills we do. All right. You look and you're like, what does that have to do with? Well, one, you're conditioning the body. So if we're doing body conditioning work, guy look and say, what do I got to do that for? Just work against someone throwing a punch at you. Well, because I want my body to be physically strong and healthy. So that's one of the reasons we do body conditioning. All right. So it goes beyond the fighting. All right. You look at other aspects. Okay. So why do I do kettlebell? Kettlebell has nothing to do with martial arts. Well, I do kettlebell because it keeps my body extremely physically fit. Simple as that. Keeps me physically fit. All right. I do the knees over toes exercises. You can look him up on YouTube for my knee. He's kind of kept my knee in a really good place now. So I make sure I keep doing those. So why do I do those? I do those so I can maintain my knee so it can function better in the fight. All right. I think we get hung up on too much sometimes. Well, why do we do that? It doesn't look like you're fighting. Like, that's a waste of time. Yeah, why would you work on that? I'll give you a prime example. So in the Chen style Taiji Chuan practical method, as Master Chen Zhanghua has passed down to me, we have what we call Taiji foundations. And for lack of a better word, they're the basics of Taiji. They're the building blocks of Taiji. And, we practice them, and a karate guy looks at them and say, or MMA guy especially, we look at them and say, oh, that's bullshit. Like, why are you wasting your time doing that? Okay. Because what we're doing is we're working on developing an ability in the body. And again, hopefully down the road, we can take that ability, if we're able to develop the ability. That's a big if. And take that ability and bring it into fighting. So again, a lot of the the foundation videos I do or the principle videos I do, you might look and say, well, why is the rod so important in the body and stuff? Well, it's important because it helps you to maintain balance. So again, we train in a way to develop abilities with our body. The other reason we want to do these training things that don't seem like they have a real connection to actual fighting is because they're developing our bodies and they're keeping our bodies healthier, and hopefully will make them even more healthy. They're keeping the bodies strong. And if you can develop the abilities we're trying to teach you through these actions, then your martial arts becomes more powerful. So especially in the internal arts, we do a lot of training where you look and say, boy, what are they doing that for? Like, okay, that doesn't make a lot of sense. All right. And I love the internet trolls. I love the internet trolls. So, making a comment, like on the splitting videos, that's nonsense. They don't even know what they're looking at. Okay. They don't even know what they're looking at. So unless you're in a room with me or Chen Jianghua and we explain splitting to you graphically right in front of you so you can feel it, you're just looking at something and making a judgment when frankly you don't even know what you're talking about. And that's one of the other things, like we're quick to dismiss certain training aspects. Well, I don't do that because when am I going to do that in a fight? Yeah, okay. So let me break the news to you. If you're doing all these kicks in all these different styles, karate, whatever, kung fu, okay, you're not going to kick that much in a fight. You might, but you're definitely going to use your hands more than you're going to kick. And all you have to do is look at any form and add up the amount of hand techniques you do and add up the amount of kicks you do, and you'll see the hand techniques far outnumber the kicking techniques. Okay. You look at most forms, you'll see a lot of forms don't have certain kicks in it, right? Okay, you got to ask yourself why, right? It's probably a pretty good reason. So again, training is to develop our bodies in a way that we can do certain things at a higher level. So I'll give you a for instance. I'll come down, I'll be feeling pretty good about myself, and I'll decide, all right, I'm going to have the class do some jump kicks. So maybe I have them do a flying side kick on the heavy bag. And obviously the first time they do it, people are very frustrated. And then they get more frustrated because they see me do it and they're like, this is nonsense. This guy's older than my grandfather and there's no way this guy should be able to do that, right? And that's okay. They can feel free to get mad, but that's why you train. That's why I keep my body in shape. Okay, then I'll elevate it and we'll do maybe a different jump kick, maybe a front kick into a jump roundhouse, whatever, right? And then I'll get to a jump spinning back kick. And that one is literally like, how are you even doing that? Like, very difficult. Of course it's difficult. Now, right now there's someone watching this thinking, why would I waste my time practicing a jump spinning back kick? I'm never going to do that in a fight. I would agree. You're never going to do that in a fight. If you do that in a fight, God bless you. But chances are that's never going to happen. However, if it's 61, I can jump in the air, spin, and let a back kick go in the air before my foot hits the ground. I'd say I'm still pretty athletic. And then, I'll also teach the double jump kick where it's 2 front kicks, but they have to kick the heavy bag with both feet. So they're not just doing one. It's got to be bap, bap. Okay, again, how many times did I use a double jump kick in a fight? The answer is never. But it's in the kata. Why is it in the kata? Because the kata is a training module. It's a template of fighting moves. It's also a training module. Remember, 200 years ago, you're not walking into a gym and going from machine to machine. The form had to train your legs. So now you're jumping in the air, throwing these double jump kicks. That's developing explosive power in the legs. That's what it's developing. Okay? It's working on your balance. You're in the air, bap, bap, you kick the bag twice, you land on your feet. Do you have that good balance? Do you land or do you stumble when you land? So again, I'm training to develop an ability in the body that I can bring into the fight. Now let's get crazy. How about a double jump back kick? So I do that one where I fire off my left foot with a back kick, and while my left foot's still in the air, I'm completely in the air, and I hit the bag with my right foot, and then I land in a balanced position. And the first time I have people try that, they're thinking, oh my God, I'm going to fall on my face. And then surprisingly, after a little bit, especially the younger ones, they start picking it up. And, they won't do it great, but they'll be able to land on their feet and they'll do fine. So again, we're doing something that we won't do in a fight, probably, but we do it to develop our athleticism, our leg strength, our coordination. So now what I always do is if I do something like a double jump back kick on the heavy bag, then I'll dial it back and say, all right, let's just do a spinning back kick, or let's do a step behind back kick. And then when they go to do those seem what? Oh my God, this is so much easier. So what I've done is I dialed it up, and now I've dialed it back. And now when I've dialed it back, they feel a lot more confident about the kicks they're more likely to use, right? And then I go down to the basic back kick, where they're standing with their back to the heavy bag and they're letting the back kick go. And they're always surprised, wow, Sensei, this seems easy now. This doesn't seem so hard. Those other ones are so much harder. So again, we want to dial it up. We want to train things that are difficult, that don't necessarily have a fighting application, to improve our athleticism, our balance, our power. Crazy, crazy important. All right. You saw I have the touch drill up where the person comes up and just tries to touch your face and you avoid it. Again, someone will look at that and go, oh my God, why is this guy wasting his time doing this stuff? Again, it's to bring an idea to you, to make you think outside of the box a little bit, to do a training drill that is forcing you to do something you might not have thought about doing. Okay. When I started in martial arts, my first instructor, who was out of shape. Okay. The guy's lucky he could do 10 push-ups. All right. Weightlifting's no good. Weightlifting's no good. You don't want to do weightlifting. All right. If you have really good technique, your good technique will overcome strength every time. Okay. But here's the problem. If the guy you're fighting's technique is as good as your technique, or he's as tough as you are, what's going to decide the conflict is how conditioned you are, the physical shape you're in. Okay. So the first time I went to Okinawa and I walked in the Isshin Ruhambu dojo, I looked to the left and there was a bench press there with a weight and weight bars on it. There were dumbbells there. And then after training, Master Shimbuku took me to his house and we walked in through the yard, and right there on the floor was a dumbbell. So then I finally asked him, because I didn't ask him at the Hambu, I said, hey, Sensei, do you lift weights? And he goes, oh, yeah. And he showed me, and he started doing presses over his head. He goes, Michael, I don't lift weights a lot, but yeah, I lift weights. It helps to keep the body very strong. Right? Don Draeger, one of the most famous martial artists on the planet, wrote numerous books. The Japanese started losing every international judo competition. Why? Because they're facing Westerners who are physically much larger, much physically stronger. Why are they stronger? They're lifting weights. They're doing weight training. Okay, Draeger tells the Kodokan, hey, you guys don't start lifting weights, you're never going to win another competition. Guess what's at the Kodokan now? A weight room. Oh, okay. So, supplementary training, whether they be drills, physical training, individual things, we do to enhance our fighting ability, to make that fighting ability better. All right. Now, let's back it up a little bit. So, let's say we're overdoing it. All right. I'll give myself as an example. At my age now, am I doing 50 jump spinning back kicks on the heavy bag? No. I do maybe 5 to 10 when I do decide to do it, which isn't all that often. Okay. Other kicks I spend more time on when I work the bag or work the makiwara. Okay. Same thing. Can we overdo it on the makiwara? 100%. I was complimented one time by a senior Japanese sensei, looked at my knuckles, said, "Sensei, I'm very impressed. Your knuckles don't look like, all scarred." I says, no, and I was never interested. I hit the Makiwara a lot, especially when I was younger. I've hit a lot of people with punches. Never hurt my knuckles, okay? One time, I hit a guy and a piece of his tooth got stuck in my middle knuckle, and that's when I was very young. So I thought you could still see the scar on it. But that was the only time. Other than that, never hurt my knuckles. So you can overdo it in the training, and overdoing it is not a good idea. Even myself, some days I'm feeling pretty good. I come out here and I'll do a little too much. And then I wake up the next day and I'm like, oh boy, I overdid it yesterday. So maybe that day I just walk through some kata, maybe do some light work. I don't go crazy. I give my body a little bit of a break. And then sometimes I'll come out here and I'll feel really banged up and I'll say, you know what? Today's an off day. It's time to take a day off. And, I'll use my son as an example. Both my sons were high-level baseball players. One was captain of his college team. The other one made it to the pro level. He was drafted by the Atlanta Braves. And you watch them train, and they do things like I would throw ping pong balls, and he'd have to hit a ping pong ball. And then what we did for a while was we used beans, like the hard beans you buy in bags. And that's what I would pitch to him, and he'd have to hit the bean. So the bean is that big, right? The baseball is that big. So again, you'd look and say, yeah, but you never hit in a bean. You never hit in a bean in a baseball game. You never hit in a ping pong ball in a baseball game. Right. But if you can hit that small ball when I'm throwing it in, well, then hitting the bigger ball may seem a little bit easier. Okay. Same thing with catching drills. My younger son was a catcher. Okay. It was like kata. I would be down at second base, right? My older son would pitch, and then my younger son would come up from behind home plate and rifle the ball down to second base. And if you were observing from the side, right, there were times where he did it without throwing. Like he would just squat in the catcher's position and jump up and pivot and throw, okay? And his pop time was incredible. Incredible. He could throw a ball 94 miles an hour, all right? Why? Because his mechanics were correct, trained his body. Again, is he lifting weights? 100% he's lifting weights. Is he stretching? 100% he's stretching, right? He's squatting in that position for 3.5 hours. Oh my God, right? So, and now that he's retired, his body's still in very, very good shape, right? So if you take care of yourself, that's the key. So, same thing, with football. So now my grandsons are playing flag football. Okay. They run the same plays in flag football that they'll eventually run in tackle. So in flag football, is there contact sometimes? Yeah, he's not supposed to be, but there's kids running on a field. Are they going to run into each other? Of course, they lay each other out all the time. So their bodies are learning, how to receive a hit. If you get hit, how to take it. All right. So again, if you watch my son do the training drills, all right, he's got them looking at the plays on an iPad, and then he's got them running the plays. And it's a constant. And sometimes the ball's not being thrown. It's just having them run the routes, right? Well, you say, well, no, he should throw the ball every time so he gets to catch it. Yeah, that'll come. But let's get this route really down, and then we'll work on the timing, right? So again, you see it in sports. There's a famous drill in golf where you stand between two chairs, high back chairs, and your swing has to go through and not hit the chairs, right? Okay, I've never watched a golf tournament, and I don't play golf. So on occasion, I've gone to a driving range. I've done a little bit. I've never played a game of golf, okay? However, I watch golf. If I'm sitting, relaxing, it's a very relaxing sport to watch, right? And the level of their ability is ridiculous, right? But I've never seen a guy put 2 chairs on the golf course and practice his swing like that. So why do they do those types of drills? Again, to improve their performance when it counts. When it counts. Okay? So all other athletic pursuits have supplementary training that they do that doesn't necessarily look like anything they do when they're actually playing the sport. Okay? But when it comes to fighting, we think, oh, all we should be doing is training fighting techniques. Yeah, if you knew next week you were going to go out and 100% have a fight, yeah, you should be doing that. But also, if you haven't done a push-up in 5 years, right? If you haven't picked up a weight in 10 years, if you haven't run or gone for a walk in 10 years or ridden a bike, okay, and you're overweight and you're out of shape, well, I think you're not going to be able to get ready for that fight so fast, right? Because you didn't do all that extra supplementary training. You know, one of the things that made me realize my first instructor wasn't what he claimed to be was, you know, I went and I started training with in other martial arts, Japanese swordsmanship, Jodo. So I went to a seminar with a senior Japanese teacher who had throat cancer 9 months before and had surgery. And he was in recovery. He was doing very well. And he came into New York for seminars, and I had an injury, so I couldn't train in the seminar, but I paid for the seminar, and I sat and watched. And the one day, he's thin man, very good shape, lean. He was teaching the kendo aspect. He did kendo, Jodo, and Ei. So he was in teaching all 3 of those arts. And he was very senior. He was like 8th dan in all 3. So he was going to do kendo. At the time, I didn't do kendo, so I was just watching. And what he was going to do is he was going to fight each one of the kendo players that were there at the seminar. He did some warm-ups, did some things, and now he's going to actually fight with them. This was great. So I sat there and watched. And he started with little kids, like, 6-year-olds or whatever. And it went up in age and rank. So it went up from the kids, teenagers, and then Qs, adults, then Shodan, Nidans went up. And he finished fighting 2 6-dans in a row. Okay. I watched him fight 30 people, one right after the other with no break. And I remember sitting there saying to myself, there was no way my karate sensei could do this. He'd have passed out. Passed out, thrown up, whatever. Okay? So the supplementary training is important. Keeps your body physically fit. I'll give you another story. We do a multiple opponent fighting drill. It's on the channel. You could look it up. I talked about it in the self-defense one last week, where, the ones, it's very, very cardiovascular. When you start doing it fast, when there's a few senior people, it gets pretty intense. And we had a guy that was pretty overweight, and I said to him, I said, listen, if you start really feeling out of breath, stop, because I don't want you passing out. And he totally ignored me, and he kept going. And next thing I know, he's projectile vomiting on my dojo floor. So, again, I've watched law enforcement guys that weren't in great shape when they got into a physical altercation, they got in trouble pretty quick. Because you run out of gas in a real combat situation, you run out of gas very fast. Very fast, because of all the stuff that's going on with your body. So, next time you want to critique, a training drill, feel free, because the internet trolls, they're going to troll. That's what they do. But maybe you ought to take a step back and think about these supplementary exercises we do, these other training drills we do to develop abilities in the body, and that we can bring that into the actual fight. Hope you've enjoyed this one. Next week we'll have an interview with Walt Young Sensei. Should be pretty good. He's been on the channel once before. Really enjoyed talking to him last time. So as always, click that like, share, subscribe button. Okay. Consider becoming a monthly member. All right. If you're interested in Zoom classes with me, I do a lot of Zoom classes. Some days I'm doing 4 Zoom classes and then teaching my regular classes in the afternoon. If you want to get some shirts or some other things, Ishinru patches, you can reach out for me or purchase the shirts that are scrolling beneath you. And I'll see you in the next podcast. Appreciate everyone. Take care.